Hello.
Oh, I don't like that voice.
I'm to learn some Adobe Illustrator today.
Woo.
Super excited.
That is good. That is good.
It's like Canva, but on steroids and much harder. So let's do it.
Yeah, it's not that much harder. It's okay. I will give it until like, when do you think?
What about 3:33?
Okay, I'll give it until 3:33. How is everyone's day? Thumbs up from Jessica, thumbs up from Hannah, cool. Thumbs up from Samantha, a laughing emoji from Caesar. Thumbs up from Alex, nice. In person, thumbs up from Monica and Gabby, let's go.
Looks like we're getting some more people. So yeah, definitely like 3:33.
Cool.
Eugene joined.
One more minute. Gabby, what did you have for breakfast today?
I think cottage cheese. And an Impossible Burger. It was more like lunch, but
Like just cottage cheese?
yeah. I love cottage cheese. It's so yummy.
Okay, I will
It's
not
like a
judge.
bowl of it.
Okay.
But an actual like a full bowl of cottage cheese. Don't they usually come in like cups?
Well, cottage cheese comes in like a container, like sour cream.
Oh,
And I just scoop
interesting.
some.
Interesting.
As much as this cottage cheese combo is pretty cool, Esther, you can begin whenever.
Okay. I will share my screen. Can everyone see it well?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this quick Adobe Illustrator GA. My name is Esther, and I am the ISP, one of the ISP graphics team co-heads. Gabby and Monica, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Gabby, and I am the ISP vice president.
Sorry, my dog is barking right now. I'm Monica, and I'm also in ISP.
Okay, cool. This is just kind of the table of contents, I guess, for a slideshow. I don't know. This is what we're going to go over, and yeah. Gabby, do you want to start?
Yes. So first one, Illustrator versus Photoshop is what we're going to talk about first. And so in Illustrator, its main uses are for like logo drawing or t-shirt designs. And then for Photoshop, its main uses are photo editing and like digital art and mock-ups of a lot of things. And then unique elements for Illustrator is that you can like type on a path, making it easier to warp the text, which is something not super easy to do in Photoshop. And then there's a big emphasis on the pen tool, and you can do multiple artboards in Adobe Illustrator, meaning you're not just confined to making like one art piece. It's a lot easier to work on multiple different things in one like file. And then for Adobe Photoshop, the unique elements for that is you can adjust the images, like the saturation or the white balance of images, and then you can do a lot more work with layers and different types of brushes. And then Adobe Illustrator uses like vectors and paths, whereas Adobe Photoshop uses like rasters and it's pixel based. And then oftentimes though you do have to switch between both for like bigger projects. And so it is very beneficial to learn both. And so then examples of this would be so these are actually things that Esther made. And so she did the Wink Coffee Co. logo in Adobe Illustrator, and then she used Photoshop to make sort of a mock-up of that and what it would look like on different things.
Okay, so moving on, vectors. Okay, so what is a vector? Basically vectors are made of points and lines that create paths. So when they're scaled up, they don't really lose quality, as opposed to a raster image that are made out of individual pixels that can be observed when you scale them up or zoom in. Vectors are really helpful for making things like logos, things that you need to scale up or change to different sizes. And the shapes you create in Illustrator are vector based. So if you like look at the picture, you can see you can kind of move the paths. SVGs and AIs, which is like the extension for Adobe Illustrator files, are vector images. And raster images, the ones that are made out of pixels, would be the JPEGs, PNGs, and GIFs. And so here are a few shortcuts that you might need to know for Illustrator. So holding down the Alt key when dragging something will copy and paste it automatically. Using Alt and scroll will allow you to zoom into whatever spot your cursor is hovering over. Scrolling down will zoom out. Holding down space will allow you to maneuver around the document, like drag it around. And Control plus the left bracket moves whatever is selected behind, and Control plus the right bracket will move whatever is selected in the front. So kind of like the bring forward and send backward commands.
Okay, so that's just kind of an introduction for like the basis of Illustrator, and now I'm going to talk more about like the actual application of all of those things. The first thing to talk about are artboards, because I think it's something that's really unique and really useful for Illustrator. You can have different artboards in Photoshop, but in my opinion, it's really confusing, and it like is not more like fleshed out, and a lot more people use different artboards on Illustrator. And so artboards are basically canvases, and you can have unlimited canvases that fit into your workspace. So this gray portion over here is like your workspace, and you can put whatever you want on your workspace, because ultimately you're going to save the images as like just the artboard, if that makes sense. Like you're only going to save what's on the artboard. And the gray portion, like the workspace, is really useful for like having different references or color palettes on the side. So for example, when I did like the t-shirt for homecoming, I had like different references for the font, because I had to make the font from scratch. So I had like references for the font, and then I had like pictures of like the original Fanta logo and like different soda cans as like shapes, and then like a sketch that I kind of like traced for my actual like one. And then I don't know why there's a copy of it here, but it's there, and that's okay. And then I have like a bunch of like different color options that I was going between. And usually, to be honest, my like workspace in Illustrator looks a lot more messy, and there's a lot like more just like random things and variations of fonts, but I cleaned it up for this presentation. But usually it's a lot more messy, but that is okay. For this one, this is not something that I made, but I found it online, and I thought it was cool because it really shows you that you can have a lot of different artboards, and so you can save different variations of the same logo really easily. And it's really easy to like copy the same artboards. Like this person probably just like made all of these and then copied it down and just changed the fill color. And so that's something that's really useful for Illustrator, making different variations of logos, because usually you want more than just like one picture as your logo. These are some of the important tools, and to be honest, these are the main tools that I use, and I don't really use any other tools. So there's a lot other tools, obviously, but these are the main ones that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to go between Illustrator and like the presentation, I guess. So first, the selection tool. Oh, actually, we will talk about making an actual file in Illustrator first. So this is like your homepage when you open Illustrator. If you guys want to follow along, that'd be cool. You don't have to if you're like on your phone or something. But basically when you open up Illustrator, this is what's going to show up. And then on the side here, you can click create new, and it's going to come up with all of these options. And here you can change the width and the height. I usually just work in 2000 by 2000 because later on you can change the artboard. And because like we mentioned, they're vectors, it doesn't really matter what like your actual like what is it called, canvas size is at the beginning. And you can also change the number of artboards on the side here and change the orientation if it's not a square, obviously. And then you can change the title here. I usually forget to change the title, but I guess I will change it for this so I look like professional, but that's okay. And the only other thing you really need to focus on here is the color mode. So usually for Illustrator, you're doing stuff that's online, but let's say you want to do something that's going to be printed. You want to change it to CMYK because that's for like print stuff. But if it's online, RGB is usually better. Oh, did I click some? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. And then I'm just going to create it for now. And then I can show you guys what everything looks like. Okay. Cool, I thought it crashed for a second because my Illustrator has been crashing recently. But here's your artboard. We got a nice blank artboard, but it's important to keep in mind that this is gonna be like transparent background. You can change the background to whatever color you want, but for now it's like transparent. And then we're gonna talk about the selection tool. Selection tool is basically like any tool that you would use in like Google Drawings or Canva or like anything like that. And you can move stuff around. So let me just like throw up a shape here. So you can move it around, do all that fun stuff. And like I mentioned with the artboards, like you can move it off to the side of like your actual final image, I guess. And then you can resize it with the selection tool. But something to keep in mind for the selection is that when you like make images bigger in Illustrator, it doesn't automatically keep the same aspect ratio. So like, let's say this was like a perfect square. There we go, we'll make it a perfect square. If I try and make it bigger, it's not gonna stay a perfect square. So in order to keep that same aspect ratio, you're gonna wanna hold down Shift and then like drag it and then it'll stay the same shape. So that's just something important to keep in mind for that. I can talk about one of the keyboard shortcuts that Monica was mentioning earlier. If we select one of these boxes, like let's say I want to make this black box go behind the white one, what you're going to do is make sure it's selected and then click, hold down Control and then the left bracket, and then it'll go behind. And if you want to make it go forward, you can hit the right bracket. So that's basically all for the selection tool. You can select multiple things. It's pretty like self-explanatory, like the like anything in Google Slides, making more images in Google Slides or anything like that. And then the pen tool is my favorite and probably most people who use Illustrator's favorite. This is where you can make like any shape that you want. So it is a little bit tough to explain, but I'm going to try my best. So we're going to be making paths with the pen tool. And so when you start off with a pen tool, you're going to start off at any point. So let's say I want to make a square, right? So I'm going to start at one corner of the square and then I can go and make the next point and then the next point and the next point, right? But let's say I want to make sure that the line is straight. I'm going to hold down Shift so that it stays up and down, or I can make it go 45 degrees or what is that, 180 degrees? I don't know, I'm not good at math, but that's how you're gonna make it straight. So let's say I'm gonna make a square, so I'm gonna go into one corner and then hold down Shift so it's a straight line and a 90-degree angle, and then I can keep going around there, and then it'll show you like the, what is it called, like the guidelines. So like the pink ones are always the guidelines, and it'll help you make sure that everything is even. And then you made a square out of a path. So remember that this isn't like a picture. It's not like you're painting a square. It's like a combination of points and lines. And so that's making something with straight edges with the pen tool. If you want to make something with curves, it's a little bit not a little bit trickier, but it's just different. So basically what you're gonna do, we're gonna start off with our initial point. And then if you wanna make it curved, you're gonna pick your next point and then hold down when you click and then drag. And then these little thingies called handles are gonna appear, and the handles basically influence what direction your line is going to curve into. So it's a little bit hard to understand at the beginning, but as like time goes on, it gets a lot easier to make sure that the handles go in the right direction. So let's say I just want to make like a little wave. So I want to make this part go up, and then I can make this part go up here, and then I can click and drag and then influence it in any way that I want. So let's say I just want to make it like this. And let's say afterwards I didn't like how tall this line is, right? So I'm gonna go to the selection tool and I'm gonna hold down Control. And if you hold down on Control, you can see all your points. So you have 1 point here, 1 point here, and 1 point here. So I wanna change this point. So I'm gonna click on the point while still holding Control, and I can change the handles like this. And so that's like if you wanna adjust it afterwards. And then if you want to adjust just one of the handles for more like sharp corners, or if you don't want it to be a fluid line, while still holding Control, you're going to also hold down Alt, and then you can change just one of the handles. So see, like for this, you could create like a sharp corner there, or you can like, I don't know, do some crazy things. If you want your shape to be a smooth line, you usually don't want to change just one handle unless it's like a sharp corner, but if it's a smooth line, you usually want to keep the handles like in the way that they were originally made. That's all for the pen tool, I think. Does everyone understand the pen tool? Did I go through it too fast?
For me, I just copy the shape instead of.
You're like breaking up, Eugene. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. Control Alt for me copies the shape.
Okay, so when you have like the shape here, you're gonna hold down Control, and then you click one of the points. You want to make sure you click the point first, yeah. And then you can move it around or whatever, but you want to make sure you click one of the points first, because if not, it'll think that you want to move like the entire shape like you were talking about.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else have any questions about the pen tool? Okay, chill. Let us move on to the shapes. These are like, I can show you guys here, the shapes tool in like any Google or like PowerPoint thing, but they have a lot more freedom because again, they're paths. Woo, everything's paths. But so you can make any shape that you want here. And like I said earlier, if you want it to be like a perfect shape, you're gonna hold down Shift so it's a square. So for the rectangles, making a perfect shape would be a square. And then if you right click on the tool over here, you can do circles, polygons, stars, and align segment. I usually only use the first two, but you can use the other ones, go for it. But for the circle, or the ellipse, I guess technically, if you want to make it a perfect circle, you hold down Shift like I said earlier, and then you can move it around, do all the crazy stuff. And then a cool thing with the star tool is that you can change how many little points there are. So you're going to make your star, and then if you click the up arrow key, it's going to increase the number of points. So it's like, I don't know, that's not really a star anymore. I don't know what it's called. And you can also decrease the number of points, so you can get a triangle. Woo! Yes, that's a triangle. And because again, they're all points, you can change them to be less like perfect shapes, I guess. So if you hold down Control again, and then you click one of the points, you can like move it, do crazy stuff. Yeah. So it's important to remember that with paths, you can literally do whatever you want because they're paths and you can change them and you won't mess up like the quality of them. With the shapes tool, I should probably mention about how to fill and how to do strokes. So let's say I want to make this rectangle I don't know, blue. Let's do blue. You can click over here to the fill on this side. Can you guys see my mouse? I hope you can see my mouse. Okay, cool. So we're gonna click on the fill, and these are like the preset colors. I think you can also make like your own color palettes, but you can, on this side, you only really see a couple of colors, or you can go here and try and pick a color from here. But usually I just go to this side because you see here there's another fill, another stroke thing, and you can double click on the square here and you can change whatever color, change all the properties and stuff like that. So I said blue, so we will do blue. And we got a blue square. Yay. And then if you want to put a stroke or an outline to the shape, you're going to go over to this side and increase like the width of the stroke. And this one's in points, I think. But basically you can increase that as much as you can. And then over here, you can change the color of the stroke, or you can click over here and change the color of the stroke on that side. So just double clicking on this little outline guy, or you can change or swap the fill and the stroke colors. So if I click that button, then the fill will become what the stroke was, and then vice versa. And then if you want the ends of your stroke to look different, like sometimes, especially with paths, if you have like a really sharp corner that's like a triangle, the stroke will be a little bit weird. So you can change like the end of, I don't think you can tell on the square, but you can change like the end, or you can change the corner, and you can also change it to be like calligraphy-esque and change the thickness at the end and the beginning. You can give it arrowheads, do a lot of things. You can make it a dashed line too if you want that. So we can leave it a dashed line. That's kind of trippy, but there's a dashed line. That's about all for the shape tool. I'm gonna move on to the paintbrush. The paintbrush is not a regular paintbrush because, again, they're paths. So whereas in Photoshop you're painting in pixels, here you're painting in a path, I guess. And so it's like the pen tool, but you can do it with your hand. So I have my drawing tablet here right now, and I'm gonna just like make a line. So with Illustrator, it's gonna correct your whatever you made into like a perfect like path, I guess. So if you saw, like if I like make like a really squiggly line and let go, it's gonna make it smooth for me. And so like there's no smoothing effects or anything like that. And then just like you can do with the pen tool or the shape tool, if you hold down Control, you'll see all the little points here. And then if you tap on one of them, you can adjust it to be whatever. And this is especially helpful if you want to use your own handwriting, and you can make your handwriting look perfect by changing like the points and whatever. And then for these also, you can change the stroke or you can fill it. Just make sure that it fills how you want it to, because it's just going to fill like automatically however it thinks that it is. But if you want to make it like a full circle, you're going to have to connect the points by like connecting it there. So yeah, that's a paintbrush tool. It's really cool, but it's definitely different than Photoshop, and you don't have like the option of doing different like textures or anything like that in Illustrator with the paintbrush tool. We also have the type tool, which I always prefer using type in Illustrator because you can do a lot more things with it. Or actually, I don't know if you can do a lot more things, but it's just a lot user-friendly to work with in Photoshop. So if we do a text here, and remember, whenever you're resizing something in Illustrator, you want to hold down Shift if you want to keep the same aspect ratio, because if we look here and if I'm not holding Shift, I'll mess up the text like that. And so I don't know what to write. I'll write hi. And on the side here, you see the character, which is like the same as Photoshop, but you can change all of the fonts. My favorite font is Poppins, so we'll put in Poppins for now. And then you can also change like the thickness and the weight. But over here, you have like the size of the font. And then if let's say I had like 2 lines of font, you can change how far apart they are. And then over here would be how wide it is, like you can change that. And then this is the obvious paragraph thing, like making it center aligned or left aligned. And then if we were on let's see, we'll move it to the artboard so you can see that part. If we're on an artboard, we can center it. And these are like the aligned things, making it to the top, centering it, making it like in the middle centered. You can do all that stuff. And then another cool thing with Illustrator is that you can actually adjust the fonts to make it look how you want if it's not perfectly how you want it. So what you're going to do is create outlines. So this will turn it from like a text into a path. You guessed it. Nice. So basically, if you hold down Control, again, you can change all of the handles and make it look wonky if you're up for that. And this is cool, especially for logos. If you want to change like the make it look wavy, if that's your vibe for a logo or anything like that. Another cool thing is the type on a path tool. So we'll use this path here. If you right click on the type button, you can do the type on a path tool. And so basically it lets you type on any path that you create. So see if once I clicked it on the beginning of that path there, it stopped being like a fill and it takes away the stroke, and instead you can type along it. And this is especially cool if you want to outline somebody in text, so you can just make a path with the pen tool surrounding someone, or like that's wrapping around. You can also do the type on a, or you can also do the type on a path tool with like circles. Let me do a circle. Type on a path tool on the circle, and so you can write around the circle, which is really cool. And then there's also the vertical type tool, which is pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna type vertically, but yeah, that is the type tool. Is everybody good with everything I said so far? Okay, cool. I will take the silence as yes. Oh, Samantha gave me a thumbs up. Yay. Okay. And then the second to last tool, because I'll talk about the Artboard tool after this, but the second to last tool is the Eyedropper tool, which is also pretty self-explanatory. So the first thing you're going to want to do if you want to change the color or the stroke of a shape is select it, make sure it's selected, and then you click the eyedropper, and anything you click, it will turn into that that color. And another thing to note for the eyedropper tool is that it will take the, it keeps into consideration the fill and the stroke. So if you're trying to, it's especially useful for text, because if you want to fill something, if you want to fill the text, you're going to want to eyedrop something that is filled with white, not like outlined with white. It's because it will copy the fill and the stroke. Let me give an example with that for text. So we'll just use old lorem ipsum here. So if I'm going to do let's say I wanted it to be a dotted line, and I already had a shape that had a dotted line. Let me make it a dotted line before I say that. Okay. So this path here has a dotted line, and let's say I want to copy that for my text. I'm going to click on the text, click the eyedropper, copy the path, and now my text is outlined in a dotted line. And then between text and text, let's copy this here. If you eyedrop a text, it's going to copy the same font. So if I change this to a different font, then if I click on this and I want to copy this, it's going to copy the font. You'll see the little T above the eyedropper when I hover over the text, which doesn't appear when you hover over like a different shape. It'll show up the T because it's going to copy the font size, the actual font, and like all of the color and fill and stuff like that. And so that's the eyedropper. And then finally, I'll talk about the Artboard and also exporting your masterpiece. Let's make this my masterpiece here. So here we have the Artboard. And then if we want to create another Artboard, there's a couple different ways to do that. You're going to want to be working in the Artboard tool here. And then you can use it like it's a normal shape, like copy and paste it like that, and then it'll drag whatever was on its artboard with it. But you can make another artboard like that, or if you want to copy it easier, you can hold down Alt and then click on it and then drag, like we were talking earlier. Holding down Alt and dragging it away will copy it. And so now we have 4 artboards. And when we go to export this, we will go to File, export, and then export as. Make sure you don't do save, because in Illustrator, if you click save, it'll only save as, it only gives you the option to save it as an Illustrator file, not as a PNG or anything else. Story time, I was working on the 06 t-shirt design for Clash last year, and I forgot that you needed to export, and I couldn't figure out how to export it as a PNG, and I cried in my bathroom. So don't do that. Go to export and export as, and then it'll show up your files, and then you can change what type of thing you're going to export it as. Let's just do PNG for now. I think it's already in PNG, yes. And then you're going to want to click use artboards, so that it only saves what is inside the artboards here. And then if you want to just save artboard 1, you can do range and then just customize it to just say artboard 1. And so if we export it, we're all good. And then I'll give you this. And oh, this is where you can change your background color if you would like. You can change it to white, or you can change it to black, or you can leave it as transparent. And then you're good. Does anyone have any questions about any of the tools that I went over? That was a little bit quick, and it was a little bit rambly, but does anyone have any questions for that part? Okay, cool. That is about all we have for this GA then. I don't know how long we went, but I hope it wasn't too long. If you have any questions, you can message me, or you can message Gabby or Monica. And yeah.
Did you check the chat window, Esther?
I am going to check. Oh, so basically, I wanted to export as a PNG, but I couldn't because I was clicking save as. Let me try and explain that part. Hold on. So basically, if we go here and we go file and then we go to save as, you only have the option to save it as like a PDF or an Illustrator file or an SVG, but I needed it as a PNG, and I was so confused, and because I wasn't clicking export. Because in Photoshop, when you click save as, you can save it as a PNG, but in Illustrator, you have to export it. So yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Of course. If not, then I think people can leave.